So I want to talk about being complicit for a little bit because I see it being one of the biggest problems we have in society today. Now, at the start of 2017, or towards the beginning of it, Ivanka Trump was accused of being complicit with her father's actions of basically being a scumbag. Just, he's one of the most disgusting people on the planet. Whereas Ivanka has come out and said that bullying is horrible and that being sexist is intolerable and all the rest of it. She was obviously called out on that because her father is a bully. He is sexist. He has sexually assaulted multiple women. He's been sued multiple times for it and lost every single lawsuit because of it. But she was called complicit and she hated it. Now, personally, I think the amount of criticism she got didn't go far enough, but we'll get to that in a second. If you're around someone and they're doing a bad thing, at what point do you think maybe I should step in and say something? So if you're with a group of friends and one of them falls asleep, realistically, it's not a big deal if you draw on that person's face. It's immature pranks. It's something that happens. But if you're with someone who constantly comes out with racist slurs, who constantly comes out with sexist slurs, and who you suspect is acting on them, well then you are to a degree complacent in that type of behavior because you're not stopping them. You're not outright saying, no, this is wrong. Now, Ivanka Trump, as I said, got criticism because she was saying these things were bad and her father is notorious for doing all these grotesque things. But she's also a part of the White House staff. Now, I think she should have got more criticism for it because she is part of the White House staff and she has no training, she has no qualifications. There's been nothing in her life that has ever hinted at the idea that she would be a good fit in the White House, and she doesn't have an actual title in the White House. I mean, hell, it was ages before Jared Kushner actually got a job role in the White House, and this is after the muppet that he is failed numerous security clearances, not just based on the fact that he's a dimwit, but on the fact that he couldn't fill out the forms correctly and kept making mistakes. I will hear that people feel so sorry for Sarah Huckabee Sanders and Kellyanne Conway, even though we don't really hear from her anymore, because they have to constantly come out and they look so distraught and they look empty because they're defending Trump and the administration time after time after time. No, they are complacent because they could come out and say, well, you know, the president has said this, that he's very, very tolerant towards African Americans, that he's going to help people. But he hasn't done any of that, and he doesn't intend to do any of that because he's a pathological liar and a revolting human being. They could quite easily come out and say that. They would lose their job, but realistically, who is going to hire them after this point? Now, if you break it down and you actually sit and think, what is the actual upside of defending Donald Trump? Maybe they will become lobbyists for companies like Comcast or any other big major deals that Trump has now given billions and billions of dollars back to. But in terms of politics, they're toxic because they've been so complicit in such a hate-filled regime. Sean Spencer left middle of 2017 and nobody wants to touch him. Nobody wants him as a political analyst. Nobody wants him in any political roles. Nobody wants him in any media roles. I think he was on Saturday Night Live once. And that was really just as a token. And it's the same over here. It's the same in the UK. People are getting too complacent in the way that things are. Now, it was a few months ago, but we had a local election in Dover. And I tried to get as many people as I could to vote. Now, I'm not going to say that everyone should vote for this one person. To be quite honest, if we had a Green Party in Dover, I would vote Green every single time, but we didn't, so I voted for Labour. But because so few people voted, Charlie Elphrick, the Conservative, who got thrown under the bus and nobody knows why, kept his seat. If you walk through the high street of Dover, you'll see closed shop after closed shop, after boarded up shop, after homeless person, after horrible, horrible things. This country makes, this town, should make a lot of money because it's a port town, and as I've said previously, it's one of the busiest channels in the world. If you're coming from France, if you're coming from Europe by ferry, there's only really two places that you're going to step foot on in the UK, and Dover is one of them, and arguably the busiest. But what is in Dover right now? What has been in Dover for the last decade? Just more closed shops. But we are complacent with it, so we don't tend to care. And it's only when something monumentally massive happens that we actually take note. For example, the NHS is failing. It's a monumental collapse, but not enough people are actually taking this seriously, and they won't until it's actually gone. I know it's easy just to sit back and moan. I know it's effort to actually do something productive. But realistically, that's the only option we have. Now, you haven't got to go out and you haven't got to build houses. You haven't got to build more hospital wings. You haven't got to give every penny you have to support something that the top brass are stripping away. But what you have got to do is take note of things that are local. Spend 5-10 minutes. Most politicians, most MPs are on Twitter. It takes 5 minutes to tweet them. Now, okay, yes, I've never got a response from Charlie Elphrick. In all fairness, I've not always tweeted him actual questions. Most of them have been rhetorical. But if you as a town, as a village, as a community are constantly in contact with the person who is meant to represent you, then you will either work out very quickly who they actually represent, or you will get things done.